Sewing Circle, National Quilters Circle, and Creative Crochet Corner have all teamed up to provide a week of live demonstrations and a bundle of 5 free Halloween patterns. Make sure you download your free patterns by clicking the link in the description. And once you get to the patterns page, make sure to click the picture of the project that you'd like to download. And once you enter your email, you will immediately receive the free download. Each day this week, a new instructor is going to stream live as we sew, quilt, crochet, and cook together. They will provide step-by-step demonstrations of all of these fun Halloween projects. And if you have any questions at all during the event, please leave your comments in the blue chat box below or in the chat on Facebook and YouTube. I'll keep an eye on all of the comments and questions during the event. We'll get to as many as we can with our time together. And I'd actually like to point out right now, if any of you are having trouble with the free pattern for today's project, you can drop into that chat box as well. And our fantastic team behind the scenes has helped with a little troubleshooting for any of you that are having trouble accessing today's pattern. Go ahead and follow the steps that are outlined in that chat box as well. I can see some of the hellos from some of the viewers. Hello, welcome. Feel free to let us know where you're watching for. And like I said, ask any questions that you have throughout today's event, and I will get those to our instructor, which means it's time to bring on today's instructor. Today we have Jen Lucas. Jen, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'd love for you to start us off by telling us a little bit about you and then also what we're going to be creating today.
Thanks, Leah. I'm so glad to be here. I'm the managing editor of the Knitting Circle and a contributing editor to the Creative Crochet Corner, so I like to do both knitting and crochet. I got started knitting about 20 years ago, just something I wanted to learn how to do, so I had a book that taught me how to knit. After a few years, I started to just fall in love with the really super lacy crochet patterns, and you can make lace in crochet like that you cannot achieve in knitting. And so that led me to want to learn how to crochet. So I took a few classes and read a few books and picked it up, and now I love to crochet just as much as I love to knit. So for what we're making today is this adorable candy corn stuffy or amigurumi or toy, whatever you want to call it. It's adorable. It uses all single crochet, and so if you are new to crochet, and especially if you want to learn how to make toys, this is a great place to start. This is really, really easy. This is a very beginner-friendly pattern, and I think you guys will all enjoy making one.
All right. Now, if you also want to drop in the comments, we were saying right before we went live, I know candy corn is a very polarizing topic in these times. So some people love candy corn, some people don't. If you're a candy corn fan, or if you're maybe only a fan of the crocheted version, you can let us know that in the comments as well. As it is right now, we don't have any questions for you yet, Jen, just a lot of hellos from some of our viewers. So I'm going to let you get us started with the first steps. And if any viewers have questions about what you're doing, I'm going to jump in and let you know.
Okay, great. Yes, I do know that candy corn, it's like a love it or hate it. And my candy corn has a little smiley face, but you could make a frowny face with like the evil eyebrows if candy corn is not for you. So let's go ahead and start about what materials we are gonna need. And all the materials are listed in the download that Leah mentioned. So to start, we're going to need some yarn, obviously. So to make our candy corn, we're going to need 3 colors. For my demo, I have a slightly lighter yellow than what I have in this original candy corn, but you're going to need about 70 yards of yellow, 75 yards of orange, and then 20 yards of white. To do your candy corn. So really, if you have some leftovers from other projects, that will work too. In addition to that, if you are gonna make the face on your candy corn, which is totally optional, you don't have to, but I think it's really cute, you're gonna just want a couple yards of black yarn, worsted weight. And then if you want to add the eyes, you're gonna want 14 millimeter safety eyes with the backing washers. I do want to mention though, safety eyes are only recommended for ages 3 and up. So, I mean, I'm keeping this candy corn for myself, so I put safety eyes on it. But if you're making this and intend to give it to a baby or small toddler, skip the safety eyes and just embroider the eyes on. But they're 14 millimeter safety eyes. That's what I used here. And then other than that, we just obviously need a crochet hook. I'm using a size 7, 4.5 millimeter crochet hook. And now that is a little bit smaller than you would normally use for worsted weight yarn. A lot of times in crochet, you're using a size H hook, which is a little bit bigger. But because we're making this toy, we want our stitches to be a little bit tighter so our stuffing's not coming through. So we have our crochet hook, and then we just need a tapestry needle and some scissors to finish our project. And then of course we're gonna need a bunch of fiber fill or polyfill to stuff our candy corn with. So this is just polyfill. You can find it at the craft store, big box stores, online. It's pretty readily available. So now that we talked about the materials, let's go ahead and start crocheting. So to start, you're going to start with your yellow yarn. So we're going to be starting from the bottom here and working our way up. So we're going to start with a magic loop. It's also sometimes called magic ring, adjustable loop, adjustable ring. It has all sorts of names, but it's all done the same way. So we're going to start by wrapping the yarn around your 2 fingers and making an X, and then we're going to take our crochet hook and go under and then over and pull up a loop of yarn. And as I pulled up that loop, I gave it a twist. I'm going to do that one more time so you can really see it. And so we're going to go under and over, and as I'm bringing it up, I'm giving it a twist. So now we're going to start crocheting into this loop or ring. I personally like to chain one first. I just find it's a little bit easier. And now we're going to put 6 single crochets into the ring. So we're just going to go into the ring, pull up a loop, yarn over and draw through 2, so that's 1. And we're just going to do that until we have 6 stitches. Here's 3, here's 4, 5, and 6. Okay. So now's the fun part with magic ring. We're going to take our tail and we're going to pull, 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 pull until it's tight and it makes a tight center. So you can see that we've really basically closed up that hole. And so we're just giving it a pull. And now we're going to be working in continuous rounds. So when you are crocheting, you can crochet this sort of shape 2 different ways. You can either do it in continuous rounds, so it's kind of like a spiral, or you can work around and then chain up, work the next round, chain up. Either way is a totally fine way to crochet in the round. But for a lot of these toys, we're often doing the continuous rounds where you're more making a spiral. So I'm just going to grab a stitch marker, and I personally like to mark the last stitch of my round, but it's really up to you. You could mark the first stitch of your round if you prefer that, either way. And I've just put my stitch marker into the front loop of that stitch. So now we're going to start increasing. And so to do that, we're going to work 2 single crochets into each stitch. So I'm just going to double check my stitch count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're going into this one here. And it can be a little tight, especially this first stitch after you've closed up that ring. So I have worked one single crochet into that stitch, and now I've worked a second. And I'm going to do that all the way around. So each stitch, I'm putting 2 single crochets into each stitch so that I have 12 total.
Now, Jen, we have a fantastic view of your crochet hook. So while you're demonstrating, Kristen would like to know what brand of crochet hook you are using because it looks fantastic.
Oh, thanks. This hook is a Knitter's Pride Zing hook. They're pretty affordable. They're not very expensive. And you can buy a set that has a bunch of different sizes in it. And so that's what I did. And it's a great metal crochet hook.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we have our 12 stitches, and so we're just going to move up our stitch marker and keep on going. And the exact increase rate and everything for the pattern, or for the candy corn, is in the pattern. So for the next step, we're going to increase to 18 stitches. So now basically you're putting 2 single crochets into a stitch, and then in the next stitch you're just working a regular single crochet. So we're just widening this circle for the bottom of our candy corn. And so kind of in my head, I'm always going 1, 2, 1. 1, 2, 1. So whatever works for you. Okay. So you're going to just keep increasing, following the pattern. This particular pattern calls for you're going to keep increasing until you're at 72 stitches, and that's going to make the candy corn that's this size. If you did want to make a slightly smaller candy corn, it would take a little bit of planning, not really math necessarily, but a little bit of planning if you want to change the size of your candy corn. I know that's a question that might come up. So if you do want to change the size of your candy corn, you can, and there's a couple different ways you can do it. You can either, and the easiest way would be to use a bigger yarn, like a bulky or even a super bulky yarn, and a larger crochet hook. You just would like to, you need to use a crochet hook that's a little bit smaller than whatever the yarn recommends. But you would obviously end up with a bigger candy corn that way. Or you could just not work as many of the increases, but then you just also need to accommodate that at the end, and because you'll have less decreases at the end because you had less increases at the beginning. So you're going to just follow the pattern until you have your 72 stitches. And so once you have those 72 stitches, we're going to start working up the side. And so what we're going to do is just single crochet into each stitch. So I'll just show you quickly on this little swatch. And it's really very, very easy. All we're going to do is put 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way around. And so you're just going to do that for the number of rounds that it indicates in the pattern. I think it's 5. And then we'll be ready to join the orange yarn. So once you have your straight, I say straight rounds because we're not increasing or decreasing. We're just doing 1 stitch into 1 stitch all the way around. But once you have that done, you will have something that looks a little like this. And so yours will be bigger if you're following the pattern exactly. I have less stitches here for my little demo. And now we need to change to the orange yarn. So to do that, there's a few different ways that you can change colors in crochet. I'm going to just show you the way I like to do it. So here's my last stitch. I am going to work the first part of my single crochet, and so I have 2 loops left on the hook. And then with the new yarn, I'm just going to complete the stitch and leave a tail. And that's it. And then with the new yarn, we're just going to crochet all the way around to start our orange section. And so this first round of the orange, we're not doing anything special. We're just working 1 stitch into each stitch. Okay, so we're coming to the end of this round. There we go. And so now for the rest of the pattern, we're going to start decreasing. So we want to sort of, make the candy corn shape. So we're going to be doing decreases every few rounds. It'll be every 3rd round or so. And the pattern will tell you exactly where you need to be doing your decreases. And you really can do whatever kind of decrease you want. You could single crochet 2 together if you wanted to, but I like to use an invisible decrease. And so that's what I used in the pattern, and so that's what we're going to do here. And the invisible decrease is just like the name suggests. It's pretty invisible. It really blends into your single crochet fabric very nicely. So to do that, we're going to go under 1 loop of the next stitch. So we're going under the front loop only of the next stitch, and then the front loop only of the stitch after that, and then doing a single crochet. So you're basically crocheting them together, but we've only gone through the front loops of those stitches. And then you'll just follow the pattern for how many stitches you need in between each decrease. But then you'll just do another invisible decrease. So insert your hook up through the front loop of each of the next 2 stitches, yarn over, come through both, 2 loops on hook, yarn over, pull through 2. And that's a really nice decrease for these toys. I really like how it blends into the fabric.
Now, Jen, we've got a couple hellos dropped into the comment box for you. Welcome to all of our viewers. Again, if you missed the very top of our time together, if you have any questions for Jen, you can drop those into the chat box. There's a little bit of a discussion started about brands of hooks. So Jen, while you're showing a little bit more of this demonstration, if you'd like to talk about the brands that you prefer, Denise is curious about that. Kristen has dropped in hers. She uses the Susan Bates ergonomic hooks. They've usually been pretty good, but any input that you have, Jen, I know some of our viewers would love to have it.
Yeah, I am really somebody that believes that you should try lots of different hooks to figure out which one's the best one for you. So I do have a couple more over here. Let's see. These are Susan Bates, and then I have another of the Knitter Pride Zings. So these are the ones I tend to use. I do like the metal hooks. But crochet hooks in general are pretty affordable. So if you're not sure what kind of hook you like, just buy a few different ones and try them. Some people really love using wood hooks. I personally don't like them that much, so I tend to stick with like the metal or the aluminum. But probably the Knitter's Pride Zing ones, those are the ones I reach for first when I'm starting a project. Okay, let's do one more of these decreases here. Okay, so basically at this point, you're gonna just keep following the pattern until you are getting sort of close to the end here. So when it comes time to change colors for the white, I just did it in the exact same way that I did when I went from the yellow to the orange. And so I just, on my last stitch of a round, I just went until I almost completed that last stitch and then pulled through the white and then continued to decrease. So after you've worked a few more rounds with the white, and I have a smaller version here, you're going to have something that looks like this. Yours will just be bigger. But we want to take a pause because we are going to have to finish off the top of this. And obviously we need to put the face on, we need to stuff it. And so we need to do that before this hole is closed or too small, obviously. So, and it's in the instructions exactly where to stop. So let's go ahead and take care of some of those little things and then we'll finish off the top. So the first thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna turn this thing inside out. And we do have quite a few ends here. And now it's the inside of your candy corn. You do not need to spend a lot of time weaving in ends, but I do suggest that you weave them in a little bit, especially because when you change colors, you can sometimes have a loose stitch and you just don't want it to become more loose, and then you stuffed it, closed it, and how are you ever going to fix that? It's going to be a pain. So I'm just going to just weave it in a little bit. And if you want to trim the end, you can. I usually just trim it a little, but I'll leave I don't know, that's maybe about an inch hanging out because it's the inside of the candy corn. So we're just gonna go and secure these ends. And you'll notice that I'm taking the orange tail and taking it into the orange section, and the yellow, I went into the yellow section, so that way you can't really see it at all.
Now, Jen, you mentioned leaving the top open in order to make this step accessible. Tyson wanted to ask, can you crochet this candy corn from the top down? So start at the white and leave the bottom open?
Oh, absolutely. You absolutely could make a candy corn starting at the top and working down. I just found as far as like, I found it easier to get a flat bottom, just starting from the bottom and working my way out to make this circle. I mean, you can achieve that if you go from the top down too. For me, this is just easier. But yeah, you absolutely could make a candy corn from the top down for sure. Okay. So we're just securing these ends a little bit. You don't have to be too careful again, because these are all going to the inside. Nobody's going to see them. And let's do this last one. And like if you do have a little bit of a loose stitch, you can just kind of give it a tug just to tighten it up and then weave it in. Okay. All right. So now that we've done that, now we can do the safety eyes and the face if you want to. You don't have to, it's your candy corn. Okay, so we're gonna turn it right side out. And then where I joined the yarn, you can kind of see there is like a little bit of a line there, I guess, where I switched colors. So I just try to have that go to the side or the back. And then we'll just lay it like this. And we have to keep in mind that some of this is going to be on the bottom, and then it starts to come up, like you can see on this big one. So I probably, if you do want your face to be lower, I would start it kind of where the yellow and orange meet, so that you know you're not accidentally putting your face on the bottom of your candy corn. Okay, so I am going to put the safety eyes on, but again, if you are making this for a baby, do not use the safety eyes. So to use the safety eyes, they're really easy. You just poke it in where you want it, comes through to the other side, and then you just take the backing washer, and sometimes you got to put a little pressure on it, but there you go. Now it's on. And so the washer just comes right down on that little screw, and it's attached. And then we'll just decide where the other one wants to go. Let's see, how about just a few stitches away, since it's kind of small, this one. And same thing here. Just give it a push. There we go. All right, so even just the eyes itself, I think it looks so cute, but let's make more of a face on this, I think. So if you're very comfortable with embroidery techniques, you can just embroider on a face however you want. I'll show you how I did it for mine. So I doubled over the yarn like this. This might be because I do like to cross stitch. I basically just applied some of my cross stitch knowledge to this. I don't really embroider a lot, but I do cross stitch. So maybe on this one, let's make a mad face. How about? Okay. So I'm really just eyeballing it here, So I'm just going up and down, and then we want to make sure that I'm bringing the yarn through the loop here so that I catch the yarn on the inside to secure it. Let's see though, I think I might have caught my working yarn in there. Yep, I sure did. Okay. All right, well, we'll just cut that and we can reattach. So just be careful that you're not catching your working yarn in your embroidery here. Okay. So we've secured it. So now we can just make a little sad face on this one if you hate candy corn. There we go. And you just want to make sure you're not pulling this too tight while you're doing it. You don't want to pull your stitches and have them start puckering or anything like that. Okay. I also have seen these like cute mustache buttons before. So you could do something like that where you could attach like a little mustache to it. So now I'm just bringing the yarn up. Let's make it some evil eyebrows here too. I can't resist making an evil candy corn. Okay. And again, I'm just eyeballing this. Okay, let's see. I went over about 3 stitches there. 1, 2, 3. Go about 3 there.
Now, Jen, for anybody else that would be eyeballing it, is it difficult to tug these out if you figure out the last stitch that you made, for example, you don't like it? Is it very hard to just pull it right out and start over?
It's actually pretty easy to pull out the embroidery. So if you don't like how it looks, like I'm not super in love with my little mad face there, I'm gonna just leave it. But yeah, I could just pull this all back out and start again. So look how angry he is. Okay. All right. So now we just need to secure this as well. So I'm just going to kind of weave it in sort of just right behind where I was working. And there we go. All right. So now we just need to finish this off. I'll have to probably reattach some more yarn at some point since I had to cut it, but that's okay. Let's grab a hook. Oh, there we go. And now we're just going to stuff it and then finish it off because we're going to have to stuff it before the hole gets too small. So I'm just taking handfuls of the polyfill and just stuffing it in there. And so this is a little bit, I can't tell you, oh, you're going to need this much polyfill. It's kind of personal preference, how poofy you want it. Are your stitches stretching out too much? You know, just kind of get the feel of it. But you want to make sure that it's all kind of coming together so that you don't have too many like clumps in there. So it's not like too bumpy, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So you can see I'm just sort of shaping it. Let me grab just a little bit more because we do want to slightly overstuff it because we are going to be closing it up, and then we can sort of push the extra back up to the top. Okay, so now we're ready to finish this off. So we're going to just keep doing those invisible decreases and following the instructions exactly in the pattern. And it can be a little bit tricky once it's stuffed, sort of to work with this three-dimensional thing now, but just take your time and you will have your candy corn done in just a few more minutes. And so it's that same invisible decrease that we've been doing this whole time. And the other thing I wanted to say about this is that I did this candy corn doing the single crochets just like normal single crochets. I actually love to make toys where I work them with the single crochet entirely worked through the back loop only. I really love how that looks. So that's an option if you want a slightly different look to your candy corn. You can do all of your single crochets through the back loop only, and it creates a slightly different fabric, and you might like that too. Okay, so now I'm a little short on yarn here because I had to cut it, but that's all right. We'll just join it back up and keep going. And then we're going to want those ends to go down into our candy corn too. There we go. All right, and we just have one more round and then we will be just about done. Do we have any questions at all, Leah?
We have no questions that have come in so far, but I will say if you're watching and you've been holding on to any questions while Jen was demonstrating, this is probably the time to start dropping them in so that she can answer as many as possible with the time that we have, especially once we're done with this small mini version of the candy corn. So go ahead and finish up, Jen.
Okay, great. So this last round, I'm just working the invisible decreases all the way around. And then we'll be just about done. Okay, there we go. I think that's the last one. All right. So at this point, let's see, we can take off our little stitch marker, and then we're going to want to cut our yarn. We're going to want to leave a decent tail because we're going to have to close this up. because we still do have, it's kind of hard to see because it's white, but there is still a hole in the top of this. So we're just going to take our tapestry needle and we're going to just weave it kind of down through the front loops of each of the stitches at the top. Just like that, and then give it a pull, and that closes it up, and then you can take your fiber fill that's inside and sort of push it up towards the top, and now we just need to deal with this end. So I'm just going to stick it right down through the center, and then I'm just going to kind of squeeze this so that I can get the tapestry needle to come out. You don't want it to get stuck in there. And then to finish this end, I am going to pull this kind of tight so then I can trim it, and then it'll just fall right into the inside of your candy corn. And so there you go. So then yours would be bigger like this. Happy, sad. But then those are your candy corns, and it's super easy. It's all in single crochet, so you should really give this a try. These are so fun to make.
Sarah actually just dropped a question in. So Jen, I know you mentioned this is a great beginner crochet project because of the single crochets that are in the pattern. But Sarah wants to know how long you personally have been crocheting for.
I've been crocheting for maybe about 12 or 13 years. I think I started crocheting right around 2008 or so. And it really was because I saw all the super lacy crochet shawls and sweaters, and I was like, I want to do that. So, but honestly now, I think the toys are my favorite thing to make more than anything else.
Again, I have to let everybody know, if you have a question you've been hanging on to, now is the time to drop it. Jen, I don't know if there's any tweaks or anything that you've thought of about this project that you want to share. If somebody wants, I know you talked about changing the sizing, but any other decorative flair that you've thought of either adding or changing around a little bit for people that are doing this on their own and might want to play around with it a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're not into the idea of the safety eyes and embroidering a face on, you absolutely don't have to do that. That looks cute, plain. But one thing that I think could be kind of cool is if you got a piece of black felt and cut out shapes, whether that's circles for the eyes, or even if you made more like pieces that looked even more like a jack-o'-lantern, and then you could cut them out, and then you probably could glue them on with fabric glue, or just sew them on with a little black needle and thread. That absolutely would work too. So I think that could be one really cool way that you could make a face on it. My husband told me he felt like it needed a little witch hat on the top, so I feel like you could crochet one of those pretty easily too and make a little candy corn witch.
Now, if you're thinking about displaying these, how would you describe them to be holding up if they're on display? Is there any kind of finishing that you could do to protect them if you're storing them, anything like that?
Usually with any of my handmade items, like when I'm storing them, as much as I love candy corn, I'm probably going to put this away after Halloween. I usually do store them like in a plastic, like Ziploc type bag, before I put it away, just so that it doesn't get dirty or anything. You can clean them off if they get dirty, but this isn't something you really want to necessarily throw in your washing machine because it's got all that fiber fill in there. It would take forever to dry. And then as far as displaying them go, they really do stand up on their own with just the fiber fill. If you do want to give a little more weight to it, you can get the little pellets for stuffing and put the pellets in the bottom to give it a little bit more weight, and that will help with it standing up on its own.
All right, we have a couple more questions coming in about you, Jen, and a little bit
Yes.
about your history. So, love this. We're going to get to know you a little bit better here with these few questions. Denise joined a little bit late.
And I actually, my favorite thing to cross stitch is anything Halloween. So I cross stitch Halloween all year round. So those are my main crafts. I am trying to dabble in sewing and quilting. So I do have a sewing machine, but that's only something that I've started exploring in the last couple years.
All right, thanks for that. I know that branching out is something that so fun to do, and a lot of people doing these crafts. When I moderate these week-long events, I feel like each of you are learning from each other, so that's always fun as well. Derek's got our next question. Total book nerd here, Derek. I am as well. You mentioned, Jen, learning from a book about 20 years ago. Do you remember which one?
Yes, it was a booklet. I think it was a leisure arts booklet, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But it was called Learn to Knit in Just One Day. And my friends had actually given it to me as a gift. And I did learn how to do the knit stitch in one day. It took me longer than one day to learn how to purl. It just sort of had those like drawings in there of like how the yarn was supposed to go. So it took me a little while to get the hang of it, but yeah, it was a great little booklet. I mean, I obviously learned the basics out of it. So, and then from there, of course, I just started finding things online.
Ooh, we got a comment in just now from Heather. This would be so fun to make in green and turn it into a Christmas tree. So
Yeah.
I think that would be a great way to change this into a different holiday season as well. Denise wants you to come over to the quilting side. You're welcome anytime, Jen.
Okay.
And Sarah's also excited about the Christmas theme, Stuffie. So I guess at this point, I will keep an eye for any final questions that come in. But Jen, I'd like to hand it off to you if you wanted to tag on to any of those ideas that I just shouted out to you, or any final thoughts about this project. The floor is yours for now.
Great. Yes, I love the idea of making this into a Christmas tree. I think if you did do that, you could either maybe crochet in some beads as you go for ornaments, or I knit something last year. It was a little mitten, but I, at the end, sewed sequins on it. So you can find like decorative sequins that are winter themed or Christmas themed or whatever, and you could just sort of stitch those on at the end to make a little Christmas tree. And actually, Halloween trees are becoming a thing now too, so you could make this a Halloween tree if you wanted to.
All right, yes, indeed. Well, that is the end of our questions, and we have completed our project for today. So I'm going to send us all off with just a little bit more housekeeping. So first of all, if you're doing these projects this week, we of course love for you to share your projects with us. So if you're making the projects from this mini series, please make sure that when you share them on social media, you use the hashtag #ShareCraftsy. That way we can see all of the work that you're doing and all of the little tweaks that you make to personalize these crafts for yourself. It's a really great community. So again, that hashtag is #ShareCraftsy. We can't wait to see what you're doing this week. And then I would like to invite you to join us again tomorrow. It will be our final day of the Craft-o-Ween mini series, and we will be streaming live with Chef Robin Miller. That's going to start at 2 p.m. Central Time, and you'll be learning how to make some delicious jack-o'-lantern stuffed peppers. You can download your recipe right now using the link in the description before tomorrow's event, and you can also find the entire mini-series schedule in the video description and watch back any of the previous live events from this week. So my name is Leah. On behalf of Jen and the entire team, thank you for joining us today. Happy crafting, and we hope to see you tomorrow.